Our modern world depends on machines, and machines require flat surfaces for accurate guides. And liquid-tight joints. The surface of this fuel pump body must be flat to make a liquid-tight joint. The surface plate is a flat surface with which other flat surfaces are checked. It is heavily ribbed to prevent warping and to keep the surface absolutely flat. It must be covered when not in use. Before using the surface plate, the machinist checks the plate for steadiness, then cleans the surface. The surface plate is now covered with Prussian blue, although lamp black or other mixtures may be used. Notice how carefully the mixture is spread evenly and thinly over the surface plate. The fingers can detect and remove any foreign particles. In this fuel pump, no gaskets are used. Therefore, these surfaces will be hand scraped to make them liquid tight. Whenever metal is cut, there are burrs or portions of jagged and raised metal left on the edges. Before checking the flatness of this surface against the surface plate, make certain that all burrs and rough edges are removed. These will injure the surface plate and prevent accurate check of flatness. These rough edges must be removed before the piece is laid on the surface plate. Again, the hand is used to make certain the surface is clean and smooth. The surface to be scraped is placed gently on the surface plate. 3 or 4 circular strokes with very little pressure are all that are necessary. The high spots collect blue from the surface plate. Therefore, the points having the heaviest blue are the spots to be scraped. For hand scraping, the piece must be held firmly in the vise, with the sides of the piece protected. There are 5 common forms of scrapers. The straight flat scraper, the flat hook scraper, straight half-round scraper, curved half-round scraper, and the 3-cornered scraper. This hook flat scraper is used for scraping in places difficult to reach with the other scrapers. This straight flat scraper is most commonly used for scraping flat surfaces. The scraper must be kept sharp. The operator should always wear goggles when using a grinding wheel. The point of the scraper must be held squarely and very lightly against the fine-grained wheel. The corners are slightly rounded. The edges are sharp and only the end is ground. Some workmen prefer the end slightly rounded instead of straight. The scraper blade is rubbed over an oil stone in this manner to complete the sharpening. The operator is now ready to begin the job of scraping. His bench is clean, his tools are laid out in proper order, conveniently at hand. He stands easily on both feet, bracing himself against the edge of the bench. The scraper is held very lightly at an angle of about 30 degrees to the surface to be scraped. Notice the position of the hands. He begins to scrape the high points indicated by the greatest density of blue. Pressure is exerted only on the forward stroke of the scraper and is relieved on the backward stroke. A sharp scraper requires very little pressure on soft metal such as this, since very little metal should be removed. The first scraping of the high spots has been completed. Make sure that the surface is perfectly clean before using the surface plate again. This time, the blue spots have increased in number. As the surface becomes more nearly flat, the number of spots will increase, be more evenly distributed, and grow smaller in size. Where high spots appear close to openings, always scrape toward the edge at an angle. When high spots appear on corners or edges, work out toward the edge at an angle to keep the greater portion of the blade supported. Whenever the piece is removed from the surface plate, lift it carefully and straight up to protect the finely polished surface. This time, the number of spots have increased and grown smaller in size. Only places like these need further scraping. Let's recall how this surface looked when we first checked it against the surface plate. In the finished job on the right, notice the spots have increased in number. They are smaller in size, they are all approximately the same size, and they are evenly distributed. For a very fine finished surface, the scraping is continued with the use of alcohol. The Prussian blue must be cleaned from the scraped surface. The surface plate is cleaned and alcohol is substituted for the Prussian blue. Without delay, place the piece on the surface plate, making 5 or 6 strokes. The high spots now show up as shiny polished points and indicate the spots for further scraping. A narrow scraper may be used, but the same procedure of scraping and checking with the surface plate is followed. The scraping of this piece is finished when the shiny spots appear small in size, evenly distributed, and close together. It will now provide a liquid-tight joint. Pieces are also hand-scraped to provide a smooth and accurate slide, such as the ways of this lathe, or to provide an ornamental appearance, such as the front of this grinder. Let us remember, where scraping is done to provide either liquid-tight joints or smooth and accurate guides, the good craftsman uses the surface plate carefully. Thoroughly prepares his piece for scraping, selects the proper scraper, keeps the scraper sharp, is clean and orderly in his work, and by his craftsmanship produces the flat surfaces so essential in modern machine shop production.